that are not catered for by the law on Presidential Emoluments and Benefits Act. These are issues of law, even if you want to be emotional about them. The law states who should benefit. State House is a creation of this law. It is a home for things like sleeping and not work. That's why the office of the president is established. The occupant of State House is expected to wake up every day and goes to president's office to work. He's not expected to turn himself into an extension work, supervising sugarcane growing in Usoga and poultry farms in Bunyoro, taking photos behind heaps of eggs. The occupants of State House are requesting 234.75 billion mbo. It is classified expenditure. That the shilling 81.6 billion you gave them in the current budget as classified expenditure has been exhausted. Because in the budget, you gave them 81 billion. Now the 81 is finished. They want 234 classified. The shilling 234 billion will bring total State House budget to 686.6 billion just by halfway of the financial year. Remember, this is just the first supplementary request this financial year. Last year, we processed 3 supplementary requests, bringing total State House budget to 802 billion. If you colleagues, especially NRM, you allow this request, it will mean that you have given the occupant of State House 315 billion in classified expenditure. This residency is the only one in the world. Mind you, you will never know how this money is utilized. They account to themselves when it comes to classified expenditure. There is absolutely, I will respond to you when I am finishing. There is absolutely no doubt in our mind that part of this money is for campaign and the rest is for personal use. Someone should tell me, what classified thing does our president do in State House? And even if it were to be there, does it cost 315 billion a year? Right, Honorable Speaker. State House uses classified expenditure as a trick to increase its budget. Last financial year, take note, Parliament approved the total budget of State House 421.9 billion for State House. They increased it to 799.8 billion through 3 supplementaries. Total supplementary request for State House was 456 billion, bigger than the budget that you had actually passed for them. The supplementary was bigger than the budget. Classified expenditure, which is security, should be requested for by defense, police, ISO and ESO. This is one way of enriching occupants of State House. Can you imagine these fellows are swimming in money while the country's road network continues to deteriorate? In Morago, the intensive care unit has 27 beds, but only 15 are working. No money to recruit staff. But the residence has a Honorable Speaker and honorable members. The Chief of Defense Forces, he keeps asking, what do you know now? Listen. The Chief of Defense Forces, General Moses Kainerugaba, has already called members who sit on Defense Committee as clowns and idiots. He also called a member of this House, the immediate Deputy CDF General Rueru, a buffoon. We need to examine how we conduct parliamentary business. This is for you. If they throw a supplementary like this that does not comply with the law and you pass it, they will reward you by calling you idiots and clowns. 2.130 trillion. So we approved a budget of 72 trillion. We are now revising it. You, Parliament, therefore, are being asked to increase this budget to shilling 73.181 trillion. That's what you are being asked to do this afternoon. 73.181 trillion. Right, Honourable Speaker and members, we urge you not to approve this request on the following reasons. Reason number one, chaotic and unrealistic budgeting. Honourable members, in all his reports to Parliament, the Auditor General has extensively reported on total budgets passed, total warrants issued. Warrant means just the release by Minister of Finance, and the actual revenue realized to finance the budget. Last financial year, 2023-24, for example, this Parliament approved a total budget of 52.737 trillion. You were asked to revise it through supplementary request to 61.669 trillion, which you did. The Auditor General, on page 38 of the report, Mr. Speaker, that was presented to you, says only 50.172 trillion, please include the trillion, was warranted, which means was released by finance. But they asked you to revise the budget to 60. Eventually, when it came to release, they released the 50, and part of the release was air. Why? The actual money that was available for spending was 48 trillion. This means there was no money to finance the budget that you passed, you as Parliament, of 52 trillion, but we are asked to revise it to 61. A total of 11.498 trillion was not released, was not warranted by finance. But even what they claim to have released, they didn't have money to finance it. That's why the actual spending was 48. As a result of this, areas continue to accumulate, and they are providing almost perennially in every budget only 200 billion to clear the areas. In the recently released report of the Auditor General has put the figure of areas to 13.814 trillion, and which is never usually included in the public debt. It increased from 10.5 trillion the previous year. So each approval you make here, know you are committing a country, you are injuring suppliers, because in the end, the Honorable Musasi will supply air. You therefore, as Parliament, have a duty to curtail this insatiable appetite for supplementary budgets. You don't have the money to finance the budget as approved, and then you ask Parliament to revise it upwards. Point number two, non-compliance with the law. Right, Honourable Speaker, Section 25(6) of the Public Finance Management Act outlines the criteria for supplementary budgets, specifying that supplementary request expenditure should be, as the committee said. We are only disagreeing on the recommendation. Because you can't say, you read the things the chairman has read, and then at the end you say approve. It must be unabsorbable, where the expenditure cannot be funded through viamen. The chairman noted that. Unavoidable, where expenditure that cannot be postponed to the next financial year. And unforeseeable, where expenditure was not foreseeable by the vote at the time of budget preparation, or should have been included in the original budget. Mr. Speaker, these criteria suggest that supplementary budgets are intended for unexpected and critical expenditure that could not have been anticipated or planned during the budget process. This supplementary seeks to finance activities that should have been budgeted for or can be catered for in the next budget, which we are now processing. There are many things you've had, festivities in Iteso, Ruoa, Chogam, the whole list. You go, because now, as a Parliament, you are under obligation to begin checking every request against the law and then see if it fits. That test my committee failed. That's why I'm here to alert you. On page 326 of the Auditor General's report, the Auditor General says, supplementary funding amounting to 2 trillion was not warranted, defeating the purpose for which the funds were appropriated. Even what they come here to ask as supplementary, they don't have money for it. And I will come back to this. So last financial year, all the amount of money is passed as supplementary. There was no money to finance that supplementary. And then he's asking, how do you know? I'm saying, Auditor General, be attentive. Right, Honorable Speaker. The Public Finance Management Regulation is 2016 as amended. Regulation 18.1 outlines the procedure for seeking supplementary budgets, including justifications that demonstrate urgency, necessity, and compliance with legal and budgetary frameworks. While Regulation 18.2 requires ministries, departments, and agencies to justify why the expenditure could not have been reasonably foreseen or accommodated within the approved budget. The Budget Act, you can skip that. So many of the entities being given money in this supplementary don't actually meet the criteria as illustrated in the Public Finance Management Act. And I have given examples, Ministry of Gender, Human Rights, Treasury Operations, etc. The Auditor General on page 23 of his recent report notes, Regulation 18.2 of the Public Finance Management Regulations requires that an accounting officer who intends to spend money as supplementary expenditure shall request the minister's approval in writing. The Auditor General says, I noted that 185 entities received supplementary funding worth 382 billion for pension and gratuity expenditure in financial year 2023-2024 without any written requests from the accounting officers. And the committee is aware of this. We were actually supposed to have had another meeting with the Minister for Finance, which didn't happen, only to meet my colleagues signing a report.